The cool thing scientifically is that you and I and our audience cannot be fully cloned 100%. So that means that there is nobody else like Michael. There's nobody else like Caleb. There's nobody else like our audience. What I've been created for? What have you been created for? What is it? Is that internal engine, that clock, that driving force that gets us up in the morning really is something that we can hold on to, especially when we're burnt out, when we're fatigued, exhausted by the many overwhelming obstacles. You and I and our audience reach 60 years of age. We'll have slept 1/3 of our life. Now that's a big chunk of that time. So 20 years out of that 60, by the time we reach 60 years of age, will have been spent in the dream world, in the dream state, in the sleeping. Here's a truth that I want you to declare. If you're listening to me and Michael right now, and you've reached this point of the podcast, start declaring this over your subconscious. I am a dreamer. Peace is the potting soil of revelation. When we have peace in our life, revelation follows.
So, fam, before we get into this conversation, let me say this. Look, I know it's a thing, right? But if what we do here on this channel speaks to you, if it lifts you, centers you, or helps you see your life a little clearer, I invite you to like the video and subscribe so you stay connected. And if you want these conversations with you beyond YouTube, download the Thrival Journey podcast on your favorite RSS platform. It is a small ask that goes a long way, and it really, truly helps us create the kind of content that doesn't just entertain, but actually supports your journey of growth and alignment. So hit that like, subscribe. Let's breathe in, get present, step into the conversation. So, Caleb, we are here, and we've tried to do this before. There's some things that happen, and it's kind of, environment didn't allow that. But what I believe is that the perfect time always shows up perfectly, right? And so in this conversation, I'm really happy to have you here. And I just want to welcome you to the podcast. So welcome.
Thank you very much, Michael. It's an honor to be here and looking forward to how we can inspire many minds and hearts today. Thank you for having me on the show. Yeah,
me too. And before we got this moment to meet, I spent some time with you, about 2.5 hours, about the things that you, like your study and the things that you do, you're speaking, and you do a lot of things. And then what you say was awesome to me is like you help people discover their true purpose and live with confidence, which I love that. And so my question for you, just our opening question, just so people can get to know who you are. What has life been trying to teach you lately that you could only learn by slowing down and listening? Listening in.
That's a great question. This has been a progressive journey, and the answer to that question evolving over the years. But lately, it's something that one of my mentors actually spoke to me many, many years ago. He's since passed on, but he had this quote that's always stayed with me in my heart and in my mind, especially when seasons of life can be overwhelming or there's a lot of shifting and changes that happen as an entrepreneur and as a leader. And this is what he told me, and that is, Caleb, be content with the state that you are in, and don't be over concerned about what's going to be at the finish line, but really step back and take those moments to enjoy the process. And I know that sounds cliche, and we've probably heard that a lot before, but it really is true for me, is to not be overstimulated on reaching the finish line. It's good to have goals and good to reach those targets, but really stepping back and seeing what I call the MPA, the multiple perspective advantage of those SEELINKS in the process of those moments. That is really what I've been impressed upon in my heart, my mind, my entire being, is to enjoy the process and not be over caught up with just reaching the goal.
Enjoying the process, not being overstimulated. That's a powerful place to really be. First, you mentioned SEELINKS, and can you go a little bit into that? Because I don't know if people they may not know exactly what that is, and if you can really not only describe it, but go into what that is.
Sure. So the SEELINK is the name of my brand, my company, my DNA of design is really what's built into that. So I just want to say that again. The DNA of design is what's built into every individual SEELINK. Well, what do I mean by that, the DNA of design? Well, I'm going to express that. That DNA of design, in my perspective, is that every single human being on this planet, no matter what country, no matter what state and culture that we are in, is made up of three parts. We have a spirit, we have a soul, and we have a body. So we are three-part beings in that DNA of design. And what the SEELINK is those individual moments that we see in our day by day, in our waking hours, and in our nighttime hours while we're asleep. And part of what I talk about in the SEELINK is seeing a link in our dreams of the night season. That's a whole different topic. We can delve a little bit into that as well. But the SEELINKS of understanding mysteries of the night season, understanding what's being spoken to us in our day by day, the encounters we have, the interactions we have as entrepreneurs, as leaders, the happenstances where maybe for most people they would just gloss over them as, oh, that's just a random encounter I had at the bus stop with somebody that I wouldn't have met any other way, or it's a random encounter I had at the park or sitting in traffic behind the wheel of my car. Those SEELINKS where life speaks to us in the DNA of our design, spirit, soul, and body. And we really have a aha moment of, oh, what are these links trying to tell me? What are those SEELINKS that I'm supposed to see that maybe I would miss if I'm too busy in the hustle and overstimulation culture of just trying to go from A to Z. It's important to go from A to Z. I don't disregard planning because we have to be prepared, but we can't be too over prepared, in my opinion, because if we are too over prepared and too focused on just the scheduling within our soul, we can miss the impressions that are in our spirit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you said a mouthful. And so just for an understanding, the SEELINKS, the SEELINKS are connected to our DNA, the DNA design.
Yeah.
Now, is that individual? Is that what is DNA design?
DNA of design is really what it boils down to, is diving into our purpose. Why are we here on the earth, on this planet, for this time in history?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, one of the amazing things is that one of the things I believe in, what I not preach about, but really share and teach, is that we're all here for a purpose. We are meant to be here in this space, in this time, on purpose, for a purpose. And so if someone is trying to connect with that purpose and don't have clarity, how do they get connected with that for themselves?
Well, this is where I like to ask this question. And this question is something I've asked over the 20 plus years of public speaking, different events, different environments that I've been in, from the New Age community to the Bible colleges to different places of spirituality. And this is a question I like to ask every single person that comes across my path, whether it's on a podcast, whether it's live in front of a live audience, and that is, what does spirituality mean to you? How would you define spirituality? Because the answer to that question is connected within the SEELINK of the creativity, the creator behind that purpose. I myself believe, my personal conviction, that we have been created by God in his image, in his likeness, male and female, that we've been created in God's image with a DNA of design, that every single person on this planet, all across this beautiful world that we live in, has been created with their own individual DNA design, their own giftings, their own capabilities, their own functions. And the cool thing scientifically is that you and I, Michael, myself, you and I, and our audience, cannot be fully cloned 100%. Like cloning or trying to replicate who we are can't be done 100%. So that means that there is nobody else like Michael. There's nobody else like Caleb. There's nobody else like our audience listening right now to this podcast that has been created specifically down to that cellular level 100% like that person. And that to me is astounding to think about that as a reality.
Yeah. Well, it's so funny that you mentioned that. Just as a sidebar, we talk about AI these days, and we talk about AI cloning, and they get to look like us. And there are pictures that we put out there, have like on my system, just a future version of myself with the background of what I am connecting to as far as my future. And I look at that guy. He's a little more built than me, and I'm like, God, he looks pretty good. But even as I look at him, I know that it's not me, and there's no one that can be like me. You know,
Mm,
there is a distinct difference, even though there's a look. There's a distinct difference because, like you said, at the cellular level, no one can be cloned. You can't be cloned, right?
mm,
And that goes to our purpose. So if you are meant for this time in this and on this at this time for a purpose, on purpose, like that is specifically yours,
yeah.
right? And so you talk about, I want to kind of shift into well, you did talk about new age. You talk about new age festivals, Bible colleges, and leadership circles, and all that kind of stuff. Is there like a thread that has kind of followed you through all those environments?
Yes. The thread for me boils back down to stepping back and seeing that MPA, a bigger picture of why am I here on the earth? Why am I here at this time in history for this function in this country, in this state, in this city, in this neighborhood, in this job, in this career, in this bubble, or in the bubble that we are each in, because we each have our own bubble, yet we interact now through this method of technology across the planet, across the world. It's amazing, but specifically with the culture that we've been put in. And for me, that thread that connects all those different audiences is what I've been created for. What have you been created for? What is it? Is that internal engine, that clock, that driving force that gets us up in the morning, that really is something that we can hold on to, especially when we're burnt out, when we're fatigued, exhausted by the many overwhelming obstacles and these challenges that this planet throws at us. That it really is the weaving connecting thread, is the challenges that we all go through, but what's the purpose that we can draw from that gives us inspiration to be able to face another day? Because that, no matter what culture we're in, no matter what place we are in, that's what I believe connects us, is what's that inner engine that we're going to reach from, that DNA of design that's going to push us onward to face another day.
You know, the first thing I like that, and then the first thing that comes up is like if I'm in a space or a season of confusion or non-clarity, how do I tap into what that is for me? I'll just say personally for me it just took just a belief of who I believed I was here to be, and then I just had to keep tapping away at
Yeah.
that mold, you know what I mean? And then like slowly and surely things became evolved into an understanding. But maybe there's someone that's listening that's like, I don't know how to tap. I don't know what to do. Like, what do I do?
Yeah, that's a very, very valid question and point, because we've all been there. Every single person in the planet, even the great entrepreneurs or the sporting athletes or the brilliant minds of our world, creators, inventors, they've all been there. We've all been there as leaders. Michael, you and I we've been there. I'm confident that we've all been in that place where like, oh, I don't know where to start. I don't know how to start to get the ball rolling. Well, this is what I call within the SEELINK, within my brand. Here's another, for those of you out there taking notes, here's another point that is very, very strong and very important for each of us to do inner inventory on. And that is the I of R principle. And what do I mean by that? Well, the I of R stands for the early years of entrepreneurship and renovation. So the early years of entrepreneurship and renovation. What do I mean by renovation of the early years of entrepreneurship? Well, let's go back into the timeline and shift. So if you're thinking there as the audience, oh, well, I don't know what Caleb's going here. Well, I'm going to guide you. We're going to go there together. And that is look at your early years of your career, in your earliest jobs you can remember, or even before that, maybe into kindergarten, like in the sandbox, or what you enjoyed working with your hands as a kid. What are those things that gave you joy and passion that 99 other people would say, no, That doesn't give me passion. But what gives you passion when you're creating something, that early years of entrepreneurship and doing a renovation of, okay, how do I apply that towards where I am right now? And when you start with that, I'm just going to use as a brief example. In my early years of entrepreneurship, one of my first jobs was a family landscaping business that my mother ran for 25 years. We served some of the wealthiest clients, including Murray Edwards, owner of the Calgary Flames, Jim Shaw, which is one of the big two telecommunications giants in Canada, like very wealthy clients. And in that time, I had to learn how to work days that could be 5-hour days or 13-hour days or 15-hour days at the age of 13, 14 years old. So there was no set time on how long I worked. It wasn't a 9 to 5. It was, okay, if the money's falling from the trees and the customer says, we want you for a weekend job where you're going to work 2 12-hour days in a row, you drop everything. And thankfully, I was homeschooled, so I was able to shift around when I did my studies and when it was time to work. And that, for me, helped shape me to where I am right now as an entrepreneur. Because, Michael, you and I both know, and many of our audience as entrepreneurs, that when the favor and the money is falling from the trees and when the clients are demanding that you come and deliver, we don't have time to say, oh, I'm too busy, I'll get to you if it works in my time window. They're going to go on to somebody else. And I use that as an example of those early years of entrepreneurship prepared me for where I am right now in being able to have a flexible schedule.
Got that.
No, all good. I was going to say, over the years, one of the things that happens when I'm usually talking about really, really exciting topics that are supercharged with those just electricity, the technology sometimes goes wonky, and that's something I'm used to. I'm used to pivoting. It's all right. The IVR is what I like to call the early years of entrepreneurship and renovation, and doing a inventory, encouraging myself and audience, of course, to do a renovation of an inventory of those early years. And part of the early years for me was working for the family landscaping business called Back to Eden Landscaping, which my mother ran for 20, 25 years and served some of the wealthiest clients like Murray Edwards of the Calgary Flames, Jim Shaw, one of the big telecommunications giants in Canada, very wealthy clients. And in those seasons when the money was falling from the trees and we'd have a customer saying, okay, I want you to do a weekend job, but works like 2 or 3 days in a row of 12, 15-hour days, they're looking for someone who's willing, that does good work. And if I was from the traditional, conventional mindset of, oh, I only work 8 hours a day, my mother's like, we only work 8 hours a day and that's it for us, we're going to cap it there, they go somewhere else. And part of what those early years taught me as a 13, 14, 15-year-old, those early years of renovation, our entrepreneurship of renovation, is to be flexible and also be ready for long hours and short hours, and be ready to be flexible with those early years of entrepreneurship. And that really served me well moving forward. And being a homeschooler definitely helps, because if I was in public school as a teenager, I would not be able to work that many hours per day for multiple days in a row. So I'm very thankful. Shout out to all the homeschoolers out there. If you were homeschooled like myself, I was homeschooled. And most people give a bad rap, I think, to homeschoolers. They say, oh, well, their communication skills are down. Well, you can look at me now and listen to my podcasting here and my podcasting portfolio on the SEELINK and over 20 years of public speaking internationally, and I think it turned out pretty good.
Yeah, actually, it was awesome that, my producer, she was like, make sure you watch his podcast. I was like, his podcast, there's so many podcasts you have been on that you've been able to really share your gifts and what you can bring to the world. And even though we're speaking to the entrepreneurs, the creators, and all that kind of stuff, you have another part of, I know you talked about the spiritual soul and body, which is, I think you call it triunity.
Yeah, the DNA of design, the triune being.
Yeah, the triune being. Yep. And one of the things that a lot of maybe modern in the business world, you don't really speak to the unseen part, right? And you do talk about that, and I know that's sometimes ignored, but you talk about the subconscious, the dream world, the unseen. And so, in your words, what does that role, the role of dreams, actually play into our personal and professional growth?
It's a game changer, and it's one of the biggest needle movers, I think, in the world for a human being, and that is our dream life. How do we know this? Well, let's get to some scientific facts, because I'm all about bringing some cold hard facts to the table. And I feel like, Michael, you're probably you are somebody that likes to bring some facts to the table. So here we go. And that is scientifically, by the time that you and I and our audience reach 60 years of age, we'll have slept 1/3 of our life. Now that's a big chunk of that time. So 20 years out of that 60, by the time we reach 60 years of age, will have been spent in the dream world, in the dream state, in the sleeping. And as far as remembering our dreams, do everybody remember our dreams? Does everyone remember their dreams? Unfortunately, no. And I think a lot of that has to do with the value that is being placed on the realm of dreams of the night season, of the unseen, because unfortunately, in my years of travel, in my years of speaking, my years of being in front of various audiences, I am surprised and stunned on how many people do not keep a dream journal, how many people think that dreams are just random chemical reactions based on, oh, well, I had, just that dessert didn't sit well with me, or I had too much alcohol, drank too much alcohol before I went to sleep, or I watched a scary movie. Yeah, some of that can have an effect, because I talk about in my dream courses and my teaching of the SEELINK that dreams they do come from three different sources. They can come from ourselves, from God, from spirit, and from the adversary, the enemy, the obstacle, the devil, whatever, you name it, right? Like there are three different sources where dreams come from. And unfortunately, our Western world, our dichotomous world, and there's the dichotomous world is the Western world, primarily in my perspective, my conviction is that they lean on the mind and the body, but not on the spirit. Whereas the farther east that you go, we have the triune being world, the spirit, soul, and body, cultures, especially in the Middle East and Africa and these places I've been, where there is a value and an emphasis on valuing dreams of the night season. When I was in Israel and Palestine years and years ago, I sat around tables with Jews, with Muslims, with Christians. And the one common thread, especially in these Eastern cultures, is that they value dreams of the night season and what did God speak to you, and what did you see in your dreams, as much as they value brushing their teeth and keeping their hygiene. Like that's really the reality in the Eastern culture. And I think in the West, we've moved off of that tangent and we've moved on to the hustle, busy, got to be goal oriented. Goal orientation is not a bad thing, but if we are completely goal oriented within our own mindset and our own strength, and we leave out the spirit, we leave out the unseen, we leave out the valuing of what's coming in our dreams of the night season, then I think we can get off track.
Yeah. As you were saying that, a lot of images came up. So first, the dreams. I have dreams and I don't record them. And then I feel like I don't have dreams, right? But then there's the spaces like when I'm going to sleep or waking up, there's a moment in there where it's almost like I'm in a different realm, a whole different world. And then I'll wake up and it's like it never happened. And I know that other people get to experience that. I know my story's not just, me. I think other people get to experience that. So this is, if no one else gets this education that I'm going to ask you to, share, I'll get it. What do we do to, one, remember our dreams, or just remember our dreams, and in that space between sleep and being awake, or, how do we capture what that is for us and be able to see what that is for us so we can apply it to the third dimension, so to speak, reality?
You're hitting the sweet spot of what I love to talk about. I love to talk about entrepreneurship. I love to talk about leadership. I love to talk about history. I love to talk about all those things. But where I come alive is talking about mysteries of the night season, dreams and how to unpackage them and how to remember our dreams and how to cultivate a dream lifestyle in the night season. This is it right here. Right here, guys. If nothing else sticks, this is what I want to stick the most. And that is, how do we activate that? How do we activate this? Well, here's how we do that. Step number 1, keep a dream journal, because it's proven within our subconscious and within dream recollection, within the neurons and the neurological pathways within our brain of dream recollection will increase exponentially more if you and I record them. I promise you that's a fact. If you look up on ChatGPT, you look up online, you can see all different types of teachers and people who talk about dream interpretation and understanding dreams or dream recollection. But within dream recollection, writing them down is so key. Whether it's writing them down linearly or pictorially, like there's amazing things that can happen when you draw out your dreams as well too. For other people, dream recollection could be tied to pictures and imagery. For others, it's writing them down as if you were to write down a story or a book. Just write something down, because what happens is when the day starts to begin, when you have to wake up and cook breakfast, you got to think about you're going to walk the dog, taking the kids to school, getting into the highway so you don't get stuck in traffic. When all those other things start to take over your brain and your subconscious, and you're starting to think about those things more than what you dreamed, and you don't write it down, most of the time you are not going to remember it, and the dream's gone. So the moment you wake up, even if it's at 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning, 6 in the morning, whatever time, get something down, whether it's your voice recorder or whether you're writing it down, because when you do this, you're going to remember your dreams and teach your brain within those neurological pathways to recollect your dreams in a better and more fuller way than you would if you're just going to say, well, I'll remember it down the road, maybe when my day's over. Well, it's too late by then. So that's step number 1. Step number 2 is speaking to your subconscious. Wow, Caleb, I didn't know I could speak to my subconscious. You can. You can train your subconscious for success. We do it every single day. Every single day, we train our subconscious by saying, oh, I can't do that. Oh, I'm not capable of doing that. Well, what are you doing? You're telling your subconscious that you're not going to be able to do that, and it's going to listen to you. Or if you tell your subconscious, I treasure these dreams, I value dreams, I am a dreamer, which is, by the way, is true, because every person dreams. You start speaking to your subconscious the truth, these realities. Your subconscious is going to listen to you, but it's going to listen either to when you declare positivity over it or whether you declare negativity over it. Your subconscious is a filter that's going to listen either way. It doesn't make a bias between you and I. It's going to listen to you.
Mm-hmm. So there are people in the world, they say, I don't dream. What do you say to them? Or maybe they're just not catching it. Maybe they're just not. I think everybody dreams. It's just maybe they're just not at a level where they know they're dreaming. Or how do you describe that for people who say that to themselves? Or
Well,
to the world, really?
yeah, I would say if that person doesn't fall into the category of sleep apnea where they struggle to sleep, there are many people that struggle with sleep apnea, but it's not like a large percentage. Let's just put that aside. Let's just say that you don't struggle to sleep. If you're not struggling to sleep, then more than likely you have dreamed at some point or another, but either you didn't write it down, or maybe your definition of I don't dream is subjective. And what do I mean by that? Well, at a lot of these events, when I'm doing speaking and workshops and public speaking events talking about dreams, I'll say, okay, do you dream? Someone's in front of me, do you dream? And they say, oh no, I haven't, I don't dream. Well, do you remember any of your dreams? And then the person's like, oh yes, there is this one dream I had, this nightmare, but that couldn't possibly mean anything. And they've already trained their subconscious that silly nightmare or that weird, wacky, bizarre dream is nothing. That's not a dream because it doesn't fall within the category of Chronicles of Narnia or Lord of the Rings where it's some epic storybook. Well, not everybody dreams in epic storybooks. Sometimes you can get a little clip or a little snippet and then wake up. Like, that's still a dream. You still saw something. And I think I believe that we've trained our brains as a Western culture and a society that, oh, I don't dream because I don't dream like Eddie next door who has 5-page dreams, or Susie next door has 10-page dreams. Well, the way that you and I dream, that we dream, is subjective to us. And that's
Mm.
what I want to get to, is that most people don't dream, or they don't cultivate a life of dreaming because they've convinced themselves somewhere along the line, they've trained their subconscious that they don't dream. And therefore, I'm not surprised when I meet a lot of people at these events that they haven't dreamed for many years because the last dream that they remembered, they've just said, oh, it doesn't mean anything. Well, our subconscious isn't going to recollect dreams if we keep telling it that they're not important. In the same way that parable of talents, story in the scriptures, in the Bible, Jesus talked about the parable of talents. Well, you had 3 servants, one that got 5, one that got 3, and one that got 1 talent. And the one that buried his talent in the sand and said, oh, well, I'm not going to do anything with that talent. Well, he wasn't entrusted with anything more. But the one that took the 3 and the 5 and they worked those talents, they got more. And the same way within dreams, when we write them down, when we steward them, when we keep a healthy sleep life. So sometimes we have chaotic jobs and there are seasons where we can't help that. But part of going to bed early and getting into an atmosphere and cultivating an atmosphere of peace and taking a census of our senses is what is the difference maker between, do we have a dreaming lifestyle or do we not? And sometimes that means sacrifices. Sometimes that means telling your friends, oh, I can't party out late because I'm prioritizing rest
Mm-hmm.
instead of doing that other thing that most people is not wrong for them to do. But that's what I mean, is that, just to answer your question, because I tend to go on and on because I get excited about this kind of stuff. But
Stick there for a little bit.
it is cultivating for us what works for us, taking a sense of our senses and making sure that we train our subconscious that we are dreamers and that we write them down and we don't disregard saying I'm not a dreamer. I think that's what part of the reason why people aren't dreaming is because they've convinced themselves somewhere along the line that they don't dream.
But isn't that important? Like I'm really truly speaking from my experience of my lived experience because from youth, there's a couple things I wanted to be in the world, which was an entrepreneur, a lawyer, and an actor. Well, I became an actor. I became entrepreneur. The law thing, it fell off. It fizzled off because it was boring. I didn't want to do all that reading, right? So it was no longer a dream. But I did have dreams, and I lived in those dreams, and there were things I lived in. And I remember I was talking to my brother. My brother, I helped him with some things, and he's becoming his own entrepreneur. He's becoming an entrepreneur as well, and he was thanking me for certain things, and he was like, "Man, I can dream again." And I'm saying this to say that when in a space where you're not dreaming, and I'm asking, is a space where you're not dreaming in this realm, this reality, maybe you're not living up to your full potential, your greatest self, the experience of who you're meant to be in this specific time and purpose, or
Yeah.
time and space.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I would just say, and we're talking dreams right now within dreams of the night season, or just dreaming about I want to be somebody like in life or something. Like just to clarify.
You can make a distinction between the night season dreams and then what I just talked about, because maybe I don't know the
Yeah.
difference.
Yeah, I want to make a distinction there. So dreaming of goal setting and I want to be an entrepreneur, an actor, I want to do like casting, like vision board casting. That would be more or less like goals, vision boards, metrics, and setting within our own human construct of envisioning what I want to be or where I want to invest. That would be within the physical waking hours realm of within our own human construct of our mind, will, and emotions,
Hmm.
and are walking that out physically. Now, dreams of the night season is the moment that our eyes closed, the moment that they wake up, and what happens in that in between place of while we're sleeping. That's what I'm distinguishing here, which is what we're seeing within those dreams. So I had a dream last night that a lion was chasing me, and I fought the lion and I overcame it and I woke up. Well, that's what we're speaking about here versus dream casting of, okay, I want to be an entrepreneur, an actor, or like a public speaker. That's vision board casting within our mind, will, and emotions. And I think it's important, of course, to have goals within the daytime, but within the night season, I want to use an example here. And that is one of my favorite people in history. One of my favorite people in history. Her name is Harriet Tubman, and she was a runaway slave on the Underground Railroad that became one of the giants of history.
I know about her.
I love Harriet Tubman. She's one of my heroes. When I get to heaven, one of the first people I want to meet is Harriet Tubman,
Yeah,
because
gotcha.
she's one of my heroes. And most people read the storybooks like this when they read Harriet's story. She ran, she decided she wanted to be free, she wanted to live free or die, which is true, and she decided to run because she didn't want to live a life of slavery for the next generation or live there anymore. And that is true. But where the story usually ends is, oh, well, she found her place from running to the Underground Railroad network, and she had some fortunate chance, and God watched over her, but she got very blessed to not be captured by her captors. And while that's true, there's an in-between space where Harriet followed. She followed a code, one that you and I have, called the Understanding Mysteries of the Night Season, and following the code of those dreams that she had while she would fall asleep. So her captors would chase after her with the shotguns and the dogs and tracking, and it was just her and the open road. But it wasn't just her and the open road. There was another factor involved, and that was God. God breathed upon her dreams of the night season. When she fell asleep, God would show her, here's the house that you need to go to. Here's the one that you can trust. Here's the one you can't trust. And she would follow her dreams that she had while she was asleep, those dreams of the night season, as a roadmap all the way from Maryland to Pennsylvania, all the way to Canada and back again. And it says that Harriet Tubman, history estimates that she herself, with God backing her up, was able to go back to the south, to the north, and free over 250 to 300 runaway slaves with her and God and her roadmap of her dreams. And she was a legend. She was called the Moses of her people. In fact, her captors thought she was a man because of her daring exploits. And part of those exploits was the code of the mysteries of the night season. And if Harriet Tubman was able to follow that code from south to north and north to south, we can follow that code, because that code is speaking to us every single night.
Yeah, first of all, it's amazing for her to be honored that way, first and foremost. And I do remember, as you were speaking, it's not really spoken about, but if you know of the story, then you can really hear that that's how she was able to do what she was able to do. So, and I know there's a distinction between daydreams and then there's the night season dreams, but that those night season dreams can inform you and who you're being and what you're creating in your life.
Yes, it's a roadmap towards our own individual DNA of design, which I was speaking about at the beginning, those SEELINKS, because Harriet Tubman's design was to be a liberator for her people, was to be a leader amongst men and women in her day and age. And she wouldn't have got there if she had disregarded her dreams, thinking, oh, I'm just afraid, I'm falling asleep and people are chasing me and I'm just going to have to figure this out just with prayer and God. But without God supplying with the prayer, well, you pray and God answers. Dreams were the answer. She would ask God, God, you never steered me wrong. Dreams was the main method that God would communicate to Harriet. And for us, we have this beautiful language, this language that was spoken of in the scriptures to Joseph and Daniel, who interpreted dreams for foreign kings. Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon had the famous dream of the statue, the head of gold and the silver and then the bronze and the feet of clay. And really, you had Joseph interpreting dreams for Pharaoh of the 7 lean ears of corn and the ripe ears and the cattle and the lean cattle. And those interpretations to those dreams set the course of foreign empires, but really God's hand moving through history. And if for those kings and for those people and for the heroes and the people we read about in history and the Bible and different history books, how much more so for us, because we are dreamers. Here's a truth that I want you to declare. If you're listening to me and Michael right now and you've reached this point of the podcast, Start declaring this over your subconscious. I am a dreamer. I am a dreamer. And you start training your subconscious that you are one to receive dreams in the night season, then your dreams are going to start to bubble up like something, a bread being cooked in the oven as well too, that's ready to be pulled from the oven. Because when you start training your subconscious for success, then your subconscious is going to start to listen to you.
And I think it's really evident in the past stories that you talked about that it can be something that's applicable for us today. And you talked about training your subconscious, and I was watching a video of you, and you were talking about training your subconscious for success that you were just mentioned. What does that mean? Like, it's still in the world of dreams, but I know we're going to the subconscious, so we're shifting a little bit here. But what does that mean in practical terms, which is training your subconscious for success?
Yeah. In practical terms, that would be, I'm just going to use an example from my own life, and that is before I go to sleep, I will close my eyes and start to declare into my atmosphere what the table is being set for my dream life, and that is like Jacob. God, I declare over my dreams, that like Jacob's ladder that reached from heaven to earth and from earth to heaven, that when my head hits this pillow, that I am going to see dreams and hear your voice, because that's your plan for my life. That's your plan for the lives of every single person across this planet, that we receive dreams and be a magnet for dreams. I declare that my sleep shall be sweet, because that's what you promise in the scriptures. That's your promise to you, to me, that my sleep would be sweet, that you'd seal instruction in the night season, because that's what you say in Job 33:14, that while man slumbers upon their beds, that you seal instruction upon my dream life. And when I start to declare that, and it becomes to be a muscle that I start to flex, just like at the gym, then that's when things start to roll out. You start to experience those more and more. And it's not something that happens overnight, by the way. I just want to be very, very clear. Just like when you go to the gym and you say to your trainer, oh yeah, I want to get those muscles and be shredded and be like Terry Crews and, Giselle Bunchkin and, all these Victoria's Secret models, or the good dudes that are just flexing, like athletes like Cristiano Ronaldo. I want to have the Ronaldo six pack. Well, it doesn't happen overnight. In the same way that dreams, it's a lifestyle. This is something that for myself, I started dreaming in the night season at the age of 6. And I've been interpreting dreams since I was 18. So that's like 20 years of dream interpretation under my belt. And I still have much more to learn, much, much more. But really, it starts somewhere. And maybe you're listening to this thinking, Caleb, I don't know where to start. Or maybe, yes, I've dreamed a lot and I have epic dreams, but I just don't have a container. Or I'm just on this journey. Well, this journey is not being too hard on yourself. And that is start small. Start small. Start writing your dreams down. Start treasuring them. And start speaking to your subconscious. And the way that bridge happens into the realm of practicality is start asking God. I challenge you, start speaking to God, asking God to shed light on your dreams that aren't just things that you experience between you and God, but are a bridge into your DNA of design, into reaching the purpose to which you've been created. Like Harriet Tubman, God, I'm flesh and blood like Harriet Tubman. I am flesh and blood like George Washington. I am flesh and blood like Marco Polo. I am flesh and blood like Winston Churchill. These people, these heroes, these giants, they were used mightily, and dreams were a part of that. But therefore, I am no different, because I'm flesh and blood as well. Therefore, make that bridge happen in my life, God. Breathe upon my dreams. And when you start to speak to God in your dreams like that, that's where that bridge comes. And then he'll start walking that out in your life.
And I just want to insert too, like, when you say speaking of God, I know there's different religions that listen to this, and it's not really in a religious sense. It's like the greater sense of who you are, your greater being, whatever you believe in. And it's really speaking to the greatness of who you are in this world. And it's something greater than you, right? That allows you to have this dream And when you connect that, that allows you to live it out in the world. Is that what you would say?
Exact. Yes, exactly. And I want to preface it as well too. That is, everyone listening right now, chew on the meat and spit out the bones. What do I mean by that?
Yeah.
I mean that if you're listening to something that Caleb Matthews is saying, you're like, I resonate with that, then embrace it. Like just embrace it like a big hug. And if you don't like something I've said, just let it roll off like water off a duck's back. And the cool thing is that I'm sharing with you out of my perspective, my conviction. And for me, my view of God will look different than a lot of your view of God. But the main thing is to take a step back and see the multiple perspective advantage. See the big playing field. Like I like to use the football example. Who doesn't like NFL football? There's a few people who don't like NFL football, but NFL football, Sunday night football, Sunday morning football, like football. Here's the gridiron. Here is where the perspective comes into play. You've got the players that are facing off, and then the quarterback that's calling the plays. And then you go farther back and you see the coach on the sideline with the clipboard and his teammates. And then you go farther back and you look up into the rafters of these different stadiums and you see all the names of all the people that ever played for that football team that are in the Ring of Honor. And then you go higher up than that and you see the announcers that are calling the game, that are going play by play through the different plays and the different audibles and the different motions on the field. And then you go higher up than that and you see the camera view of the stadium and the city. And then you go higher up than that and you see the nation. And you go higher up than that, you see the planet. You go higher up than that, you see the galaxies and the planets. You go higher up than that, and then there's heaven. That is what I'm talking about. Getting an MPA perspective of you're not alone in this. So whatever spirituality looks like to you, that's why I preface it at the beginning. One of the main questions I like to ask is, what does spirituality mean to you? That's something that myself and my teams, when we're doing dream interpretation in these various festivals and events, everywhere from Stonehenge in summer solstice in the UK to Nosara in Costa Rica, where the yogis gather, to Bible colleges and churches in East Africa, to youth camps in the Philippines and some of the remote places, to the Maasai warriors in Tanzania, some people who've never seen white people before. All these different environments boils back down to the question that I like to ask to so many people when we're doing dream interpretation, and that is this: what does spirituality mean to you? What does God look like to you? Because when you start to explore that and get outside of just the soul, mind, will, and emotions, the dichotomous worldview of just what's in your own control and what's in the unseen, that's the game changer. That's what's going to that's what's going to push the needle forward into the end zone of your purpose.
Pushing the needle forward. That leads me into, I know we talked a little bit about subconscious, right? And it kind of plays in what we just talked about. And you have said that your words ignite your words ignite your world, right? And I kind of wanted to know, like, language creates, right? Back in the day they said, sticks and stones may hurt your bones, but words will never hurt you. Well, words create, right? Words can be, they can cause harm. But in this space, we're talking about the creative power of it. So can you unpack, like, I know you talked a little about neuroscience and subconscious and everything like that, and the spiritual design. How does all that work together to turn your word to a declaration that's tangible into this, what I know is a 3D world, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, where it all starts to go across that bridge is what we declare we become. It's that principle, right? Who we hang out with is who we become like. When you do an inventory of, who do you want to become in life? Well, one of the first questions I like to ask myself if I'm taking a self-assessment or I'm asking somebody else is, what are the quality of people around you? Well, let's look at the quality of the words that we're creating, since we're on this topic right now, since we're talking about this right now. What is the quality of the speech that's coming forth from our lips? What are we declaring? What's in our daily habits within ourselves and what we're creating? And one of the great scientific experiments, one of the Japanese scientists, you probably have his name, I think Ito is his name, but he had this microscope where he had water underneath the microscope.
Oh yeah.
And they tested the water to see, okay, what water was going to do based on positive or negative declarations. And when there are positive declarations, the water produced these brilliant images. When they are negative, they produce gnarly and snarled and disfigured images. And therefore, because it's at a cellular level, we know that when we declare, we are going to create worlds within our words. And that's why within athletic mindsets, a lot of the biggest athletes like Novak Djokovic and LeBron James and, like Roger Federer and Tom Brady and Cristiano Ronaldo, Lionel Messi, like you go down through all the different athletes, Muhammad Ali when he was alive, they all had sports psychologists. And they had those psychologists that would help train them in just their mindset, but also what they're speaking, what they're really building. Because if I go on that field and I say, oh, that opponent just looks too good. Oh, I'm definitely not going to win today. Well, what's going to happen? Your subconscious is going to listen to you. We have been defeated. That's right. But if I go in that field and say, I'm going to win, I'm going to do the best that I can do. Or maybe we don't win in the way that we want to, but we still win personally because we left it all on the field. And that's what happens when our subconscious and our cellular level listens to us. And really, for me, it boils down to my conviction is that, the worlds that we live in was created by the Word of God. And therefore, if we're creating God's image, when we speak, things are manifesting. Like this table that I have my computer on right now, these computers that Michael and I are speaking to, these microphones that we're talking through, this World Wide Web, this network, all these things that we can see came from the unseen. Everything came from the unseen. It came from a design, a blueprint. The Great Pyramids of Giza came from somebody's imagined ideas within their dreams, within their physical dreams. But I think a lot of these wonders that we see in life, they had to have come from the night season. In fact, one of my friends, just want to use a practical story here, and that is in Kickspike, the company, I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, Michael, or audience, but Kickspike were a company of the shoes that you use when you're hiking up mountains, when you're doing like the intense mountain climbing.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know. I can see it in my head.
Yeah. Kickspike is a company that one of my friends that I did runway fashion modeling with, her husband came up with, and he was on the Dragon's Den version for Canada, like the Shark Tank Dragon's Den version. I think it's one of those shows. And he was coming up with a patent of a design for the Kickspike shoe. And he was frustrated because every single patent that he tried to use for this shoe was just not working out. He's like, I'm reached my wit's end here. I'm working on this for months and months and months. Nothing's happening. And one night he had a dream in the night season where the blueprint for the patent came to him of the missing links that he needed for that Kickspike shoe. And when he used those patents that he saw in his dreams, when he woke up, he applied them to the Kickspike. And then that was what was able to help him present that to the Dragons or to the Shark Tank, one of the two shows that he was on. I can't recall it right now, but he was on one of those two shows, and he presented his patent, and they invested in him, and now he's a successful company. But that came from a dream. From a dream. Yep.
Yeah, that's. I mean, I was writing notes as you were saying that, and so like, there's all of what we see, the computers, the desk, everything that's here came from words, but those words came from somewhere else, right? It came from an unseen. And would you say that the inner world is more real, and then maybe through that dream, it can be manifested through those words or declarations, and that can become your world?
Yeah, it's like Inception in the Matrix, right? You've seen those movies before. Inception, the Matrix.
That movie. I love those movies.
I love those movies. And like the Matrix, like, okay, welcome to the real world. Like there's that line. It's like Morpheus, like looking through those sunglasses, and Neo's like, whoa, like this is the real world. Like this world that I'm in right now, if I'm just looking at the outward 9 to 5 and clocking into the office and not really looking for those SEELINKS of the Matrix, since we're talking about the Matrix beyond that physical world, we're going to miss so much. We are going to miss so much. And within Inception, these layers upon layers of dreams, there's such a big chunk of our lives that are spent dreaming. And I just think that one of the great tragedies of human existence is for people to just go to sleep and wake up and not really regard what's happening in between. Because I do not believe that human design would be the way that it is if dreams didn't have some sort of meaning in that in between space. We wouldn't be sleeping for that long. We really wouldn't. That's my conviction. Somebody else may disagree with me on that, but there is that gap. And part of that is the partnership that we get to play within creating those worlds, within speaking those worlds into existence. And the subconscious is connected to the realm of dreams, because what we look at, what we behold, we become. That's something that one of my great friends and great mentors, who's passed on, another one of them has passed on, he often prefaced it and emphasized was, what we look at, we become. What we behold, we become. And if the audience that's listening right now saying, I want my dream life to become more accelerated, I'm excited about this, I want to have codes like Harriet Tubman and like these entrepreneurs, I want to see this. Well, part of that is really doing that census of our senses, of what we put in our eye gate. Like for me, I can't watch some of the movies that most other people can be permitted to watch, because it's going to screw up with my dream life. It's going to screw up with the quality of my sleep and me being able to get through and see clearly inside the pool, the pond of my dream life. It's like Mufasa and Rafiki. Like, I'm going to get silly with an example here. Rafiki takes Simba, not Mufasa, Simba to the water.
Simba.
He's like, what do you see? And he's like, I can't see anything. Look harder. And he taps the water, and then he sees the reflection. He's like, he lives in you. And I use the Mufasa and the Simba example to say this: your spirit is like Mufasa with Simba. And if we're not looking close enough, we're going to miss it. Our spirit is speaking to us. We have to look harder. Take the extra moments to look, see those links, start cultivating a healthy lifestyle of treasuring and valuing dreams in the night season. This is really going to push the needle. I cannot emphasize this enough.
So would you say, I was going to ask for like a nightly practice that someone could do, but would you say at the beginning of the practice, what you said earlier, would you say, I am a dreamer?
That's step number one. Because if we don't believe that, then everything else falls apart. It's like showing up to the workforce, the job, and you're like, okay, I can't do this. No, I just can't do this. No, I really can't do this. Then you're not going to do it. But you show up to the job site, and the job site is diving into the mysteries of the night season. So step number one is declaration. I am a dreamer. Step number two, start journaling stuff down. Step number three, and this is, I'm just going through really, really quick here, because I could talk about this for months and months and years, because this didn't happen overnight for me, and it's a process. But that is, what is this a picture of? So, because for you, Michael, a dream of a golden retriever could be something different than me. A dream of a German shepherd could be something different for me. Like for me, I was terrified of German shepherds when I was a kid, because they'd always chase me down the street and try scratching at me and biting at my hip. For you, you could love a German shepherd because it was the animal that was your loyal companion that pulled you out of the drowning river when you were 8 years old. I'm just making something up there, but different things for different people. So what is this a picture of? What is this saying to me? Start having that inner dialogue of what these images and what these symbols and what these people and these places are in your dreams. That's going to start to really unpack that matrix, that code, that personal code that you have, that I have, that inception. It's going to start to make sense. But what is this a picture of? And then start moving off of that tangent from there. But I was going to ask you, for time permitting, I would love to be able to practically, a little show and tell. If you have a short dream that you wanted to share with me, if you're comfortable with, I'd love to unpackage that for you and show the audience what it kind of looks like to unpackage a dream.
Like a dream, that a night season dream, right?
Yeah, dream of the night season, something you had, oh man, like last night I had this wacky dream, or 10 years ago I had this dream I dreamed of while I was asleep and saw this, and I'm not really sure what it means, or maybe I do, but like a different perspective. Yeah, that kind.
Yes, I have them, and I'm at the level, like I feel like I'm a spiritual. I believe in spiritualness and spirituality and all that good stuff. I I don't have the practice of remembering my dreams and writing them down.
You don't remember any dream when you were a kid or childhood or whatever growing up where it's like, oh, I had this really quick dream of something strange happening, but nothing at all that comes to mind?
Nothing that comes to mind. And I think here's the work that I'm doing on myself, though, which I'm glad I'm having this conversation with you because, like, I recognize that in this whole transition of my life right now. Um, and so I did have one the other day, but I just really don't. I remember having it. There are dreams I remember having and being able to recite them afterwards, but not writing them down. And then I remember having dreams, and then I would just like, oh, that was a dream, and it would.
Yeah.
But it's just like at this moment in time, there's so many things that come throughout the day, the years, the weeks, that it's now it's not it's nullified.
Yeah.
And so I feel like I've missed out on what those things were, what they were telling me, because I never wrote them down.
Well,
So now
here's
I
a
get to
practical
this moment, and now I'm not able to experience what that was for me.
Oh, no, all good. Well, we're having a good conversation, and it's benefit for you, myself, for audience, especially many people who have reached those places of, oh, I know I dream, I just can't remember them. Where do I start? Like, how do I get this engine going again? My heart is willing, but how do I actually get my feet rolling on this? And I think this is really good, this conversation that we've been having about dreams today.
Yeah.
A practical an example from my own life I wanted to share, and that is years ago when I was traveling in the Philippines. I was doing some humanitarian work. I was doing some public speaking with one of the remote villages with some of my friends that were there with me. And we were going our separate ways after a long day of speaking, a long day of just ministry. And I was at a guest home, and we went to the village, and then it's nighttime. I was like, I'm really tired. I'm gonna go to sleep. All I'm thinking about is I'm tired. I'm not thinking about anything else outside of this trip other than I need to get sleep because tomorrow's going to be another day, right? So I fall asleep. I'm in somebody else's home, or whatever, like unfamiliar territory. But I get excited when I travel on these trips because I know I'm going to have really interesting dreams. So I have an interesting dream. And this dream is one of my friends in Africa, one of the leaders that I know in Africa that I'd spoken to many times and gone many trips with. He was standing in front of me in my dream, my friend from Africa. His name is Weston. He's passed on since. But at this time, he was standing in front of me in the dream. And you know somebody you look at in the hospital when like their face just looks like, oh, this person looks rough. Like they look like they're on death's door. My friend had that look in his face of he had malaria. Now, I've seen people with malaria in Africa before. I've been to some of the hospitals. He looked like he had a bad case of malaria. And I just felt like something was really imminent. Like if something didn't intervene for him, God didn't intervene, he was going to die. And so I was just like rebuking death. And I just felt like this black energy and this force that I was wrestling with. Like I was very lucid. It's like Inception, right? I was wrestling with this. I was rebuking death. I was praying God's healing power over his life. But then I woke up. I was like, wow, that came out of nowhere. I wasn't thinking about my friend Weston. I was thinking about I need sleep because I'm tired from this day, right? So a couple of months later, I'm in the United States again at one of my events, and I see Weston there, and he walks up to me, my friend from Africa, and I say, Weston, 3 months ago, like I was in the Philippines and I had this dream, and you were standing in front of me, and you were really sick with malaria, and you were almost on the point of death. Like, were you sick? Did you have malaria? He said, yeah, I had malaria. I had a deep condition of malaria where, like, if I didn't get a miracle and a breakthrough here, I was going to die. And I said, I prayed for you in that time. Know that I prayed for you in that time, that this is what came up. And he's like, that's amazing. But just the amazing links of how God links these links between, human beings, between our subconscious, between the dream life, like that was for somebody else's benefit. Like there's a small category of dreams where, it's outside of just what's happening in our own life. It could be for somebody else. And I'm so glad that I responded to what I saw and didn't just disregard that as, oh, I don't need to pray for him. I'm sure it's probably just a figment of my imagination. But I acted upon that. Therefore, I want to encourage our audience listening right now, just in this mode right here. Don't disregard something that looks silly. Don't do it. Like embrace it, because just like Chronicles of Narnia, just like Lord of the Rings, just like these stories, The Alchemist, all these things that we come to appreciate. Your dreams are a living parable. They're a living parable of language that are waiting to be unpacked. And don't disregard your dreams, because one dream could change your life. It could change somebody else's life.
Yeah, man, there's like just a whole bunch of things percolating in my brain here. Because I think like what I was saying is that, you know, the message that you shared is a great lesson for people like me, or just people in general, to know that you want to be open to what dreams are, because it's really truly a part of us. And I think it's just being open to those dreams. And how do you share to someone like, hey, just be open to the dream, and don't, like you said, you know, don't discard it. You know, this could be something that's being shown to you to share with somebody else, or what, like in your situation, you're praying for someone.
Yeah. Don't disqualify yourself when the race hasn't even started yet. Like the race is yet to begin, but when it does begin, don't disqualify yourself. Just qualify yourself, because look, between Michael, between the two of us, and audience listening right now, there's no difference between me and Michael and you when it comes to dreams. Everybody has dreams.
Yeah.
Like as far as do you dream every night, or do you dream once a week or once a month, or that's not something else to be explored entirely. But as far as dreaming, scientifically, everybody dreams. Everybody dreams. And if you have sleep apnea, well, I believe in this principle. We've been talking about this all throughout the conversation. Maybe you're thinking, okay, Caleb, I got sleep apnea. I can't fall asleep. Therefore, I'm not qualified to dream. Well, this is where speaking to your subconscious comes into play. And that is getting into a meditation that's speaking to your triune being place comes into play. Speak to your subconscious, speak to your spirit, speak to your mind, will, and emotions, speak to your body, because at a cellular level, because we know that cells respond to the spoken word, when you speak to your mind and you speak to your brain, you speak to your entire immune system to respond to peace, peace is going to come. Now, whether that comes overnight or in a week or in months or years of practice, this is something that you have to exercise and work out. And for those of you thinking, okay, Caleb, this sounds a little bit ridiculous, like it's surely like it's not that easy. Well, it's not easy, but also it can't hurt to try either. It really can't hurt to try to speak to your immune system to respond, because we've all been there, right? Say, oh, well, it's flu season. Oh, that person's sick. Oh, how come you got me sick? Well, if we stress ourselves up to that place to where we're going to get sick and we get sick, that's on me. That's on you. It's like, whereas if you say, you know what, I'm going to push away the other distractions and I'm going to prioritize my sanctuary, prioritize your place. There is a place. That's one of my favorite teachings from one of my spiritual teachers over the years. He had this teaching called "There is a place." And in the story of Jacob in the Bible, it says that when he reached a certain place, then he put the stone down the ground, head hit the stone, and then he saw and he dreamed. When we reach a certain place in our life where we connect with peace, then that is the place where it's the potting soil of revelation. Peace is the potting soil of revelation. When we have peace in our life, revelation follows. That's a principle.
That's powerful, man. Caleb, there's so many things that we can really dive into. I mean, we can be on this podcast for another 2 hours. I don't think people's attention span is that long, but not right now. There's a few. But there was, I think that was a great place to really end, and maybe pick up at a different time in the future. But I know that one of the things I wanted to talk about, I know we won't be able to do it right now, but you had, like in the past, I've had guests who had these 3 C's or these 5 C's and all this kind of stuff. And I know you had the 3 C's, but then upon deeper research, you had 3 levels of 3 C's. And I was like, okay, well, I was going to start with that, but then that's kind of how the conversation went. And so we'll talk about that at a different time. But I just want to let you know that I loved that. And really, I mean, just want to say thank you for being on the podcast. But landing here, what a question do you wish people would ask themselves about their inner world before they take their next leap, decision, or wherever they choose to go for their next chapter in life?
Question that I would hope that people would ask themselves is, what are the SEELINKS of my day by day and in the night season that I've glossed over? What are those experiences in my everyday, at my work, with my family, my friends, with nature? What are those moments that I've glossed over, that I've missed, where life has been speaking to me, that I need to go back and re-explore those moments again? Because it's not too late. It is not too late. As long as you and I, we have breath in our lungs and we have a pulse, it's not too late. Don't let anybody or anything ever tell you that it's too late to start, to be able to take an assessment of those SEELINKS in your day by day and in the night season, and those dreams that you're receiving while you're sleeping. And as Michael is saying, I've got 3 C's, I've got different categories of C's, I've got levels of teaching, things that of course would be lovely to go over in a different time and place. But I want to emphasize, if you enjoyed me on Michael's show, and thank you, by the way, Michael, for having me on your amazing podcast, you can follow me on YouTube at the SEELINK. And that's where, hit subscribe. Would love to have you on my channel and follow along the journey as well too. And love to take you along on the ride. And it's complimentary content to inspire you to reach the purpose to which you've been created. Because that's the main boiling point, is reaching the purpose to which we've been created. And I believe you can do it. If nobody else has told you this, no other voice, no other stranger, no other individual has told you that you can, you can. You will reach the purpose to which you've been created by God. And I'll leave the audience with this. I'll leave everyone with this. One of the most famous kings in history, called King David, it says that when he reached the end of his life, it says that his life was full of days, not empty of days, not half of days, not a quarter of days, but full of days. And that's the place that I want to reach individually. And that's the place that I believe you can reach when you follow the SEELINKS of your DNA of design and walk out the purpose to which you've been created by God, full of days. So I declare that over you listening to right now, everybody listening, every soul, every person from every country and every place, that your life, whenever your life concludes and when you reach the finish line, is going to be full of days. So I encourage you with that. May you be fueled with that reality in your subconscious. Thank you, Michael, for having me on the show.
You got it. With that being said, follow Caleb. Sorry, because you talk about King David, and I was about to call you David.
Call me King David.
Stay in contact with Caleb. We'll get on his YouTube channel it's THESEE link, right? Not SEA, but SEE link. And really connect with him, especially if you want to learn if you want to really distinguish your dreams and really understand what the 3 C's that we talked about, the 3 categories of the 3 C's. I'm sure he'll be able to share that with you on his YouTube. And this conversation has been more than, it's been depth, it's been enlightening, it's been fulfilling. And thank you for being here, and thank you for sharing yourself with our audience. It's a pleasure. As we always say, let's make thriving your new normal, and we'll see you next podcast. Take care.